Now let's get started with this jQuery. So jQuery is a easy to learn technology, which is combination of multiple JavaScript libraries, right? Which is provided by the common developer community. So jQuery is completely free source we have, which we can directly download and we can start using programming. Basically, it takes a lot of coding in JavaScript, right? If you want to actually make quality output out of JavaScript, right? And most complex animations or Ajax handling and all, it definitely take a lot of lines of code to write it in JavaScript, and that too optimized and high performance code, right? So here jQuery helps us to actually use them directly. So there are pre-written APIs or libraries in JavaScript which are already embedded in jQuery libraries, right? Which you can directly use and avail the services of different features like Ajax calls or easy and complicated DOM manipulations and everything, right? So as simple, jQuery is completely written on top of JavaScript, right? And jQuery is basically platform which is browser independent. So when we normally start writing with JavaScript programs on top of our pages, right? We may have to check for browser compatibility of different APIs and all, right? But in jQuery, it's a complete browser independent one. Any browser with respect to the version of jQuery, right? It works across all browsers which are certified in market now, right? So all the complicated tasks which we need to write in JavaScript are pre-built as multiple APIs and included in jQuery. It's a very easy to learn technology we have, and very advanced technology we have, right? Which using which we can actually we can actually develop applications which is easy to understand and fast to actually implement, and we can actually build a rich UI components as such using jQuery, right? And jQuery is, as I said, is a free source we have, right? And it is easy to use and include in our projects, right? Even if we have any project where we have multiple JavaScript files which we have created, yes, we can also include jQuery and we can start using it. There are two different ways how we can actually do use jQuery, right? One, either you can download the binaries, or second, we can use CDNs, right? So download binaries through from the link you can see here, which is jQuery.com/download, and we're gonna see multiple versions. Two major versions in jQuery we're gonna see, and we'll actually select accordingly, right? Which is the download option, and the second option is CDN. CDN is nothing but content delivery network of content delivery network, right? Where you don't have to. This is mainly used at production environments, basically, right? And download a multiple unzipped version we normally use for developments, where we may have to actually open up a JQ file, and we may want to debug and undo stuff, right? And CDN is something which is basically used in production, the best way to actually use, so that it will actually keep up the multiple upgrades and fixes being given to the API versions, right? We don't have to worry. We can directly map it to the CDN network. We'll understand how CDN and a download API can be referenced. We'll see that part. Not to worry, right? And jQuery, as I said, is a open community, open developer community developed one, right? And it is continuously upgraded, maintained, right, and being tested to make sure that the high quality and high performance web UI support is provided over the internet, right? So now we have a jQuery platform for jQuery UI, which is for web, which you have jQuery mobile, right, where we can actually develop multiple native apps on any mobile platform using jQuery. Yep, and we're gonna learn the jQuery platform which can be used across any development you want. It can be web UI or mobile UI, right? So there are certain major features which we're going to see as part of jQuery. So before we talk about major features, right, let's understand the versions we have. We have two major versions. One, the 1.x, and the second one is 2.x. So parallelly, jQuery community developers release both the versions parallelly. 1.x will be going on, and also 2.x will be going on. But 2.x, which is the latest version under 2.x, is 2.2.3, which actually got released on April 5th this year, 2016. As per the current class, right, it was actually 2.2.3, which is on April 5th, 2016, a month ago. And under 1.x, we have the latest version, which is 1.12.3. This is again released on the same date, which is April 5th, 2016. Right. So 2.x, right, basically work only on modern browsers. It doesn't work. For example, if you take IE, right, IE version up till 8, it doesn't work, right? The active ones, which even current market is using, is 6, 7, and 8, and anyways 9, 10, and we have Edge version and all, right? But the versions beyond 8, right, we cannot use 2.x, but yes, we can still use 1.x as such. So if you're using modern browsers, then it's recommended to go for 2.x, right? And if you're actually going ahead with old browsers, most of the clients are with old browsers, then you can go ahead with 1.x. It's not like one. It's not like if you select both contain same features, right? So both the releases. So these two are stable releases, by the way, right? This is a stable release, and this is again a stable release under 2.x we have. Right, so 2.x and 1.x have got same APIs we have, right? But it completely differs in the browser dependent version. So old versions you can go for 1.x, and the newer ones you can select 2.x. That's why when you open up your jQuery, right, to download, so this is a page, this is a jQuery official page we have from where you can actually download your jQuery. You can see you have jQuery 1.x, which is the latest version running is 1.12.3, right? And you have 2.x running, right, which is you have 2.2.3 version running. So you can actually go ahead with either of them. So as we are going to use, you can see here that browsers, till 8 it doesn't support, and 1.x supports till the latest browsers, anyways, right? And yep, as we're gonna use the modern browser, I'm gonna use 2.x. The API version, as I said, the APIs and all the functions, whatever we're gonna see, are common in 1.x and 2.x, but 2.x is mainly designed for modern browsers, basically, right? So you can actually download. I've actually kept a 2.x ready, so I'll be using uncompressed version. So even in every specific version, right, there are two different subversions, I mean, or the download versions we have, right? One is your minified version, and second is something called unzipped version, uncompressed version, right? So minified is something, right, which is basically used for production, right? So basically, whenever we use CDNs, right, CDN, which is a over the network reference of JavaScript APIs, will be actually reference to minified versions, which are easy to access and easy to trace for production. So which when I say production, it's live sites. I'm kind of talking about, right? And when it is uncompressed, which means we also have the core or the core libraries available, which you can see the code and debug. So this is basically used for development. So so when I actually talk about this, that's why I said will be downloading the uncompressed version of 2.2.3, right? And we'll actually keep it ready as we are going to actually develop. This is something which is our download and setup version. So I've downloaded and I've kept my library ready, which is jQuery 2.2.3.js um, in my folder where I'm gonna actually create my HTML files or the web pages basically, right? And we'll see how we can actually reference to our pages and start using it, right? So that's your download and and use basically, and you can actually download from all the upgrades, and you can also find the release notes of each version being released, right? And what major upgrades were made, right? We'll have the release notes too. And this is your download version, and if you go down, you'll also have something called CDNs. You can see there are 3 or 4 different CDNs you have, which is content delivery networks. You have Google CDN, Microsoft CDN, you have CDN, JS CDN, and you have direct JS delivery. So either any of them you can use, because end of the day jQuery community updates. If there are an upgrade, so it will be done for all CDNs. So CDN is like the APIs will be kept at, let's say for example, Google servers, and we'll be referring to Google server directly, kind of, right? So let me show you. For example, when I click on this Google CDN, for instance, right? So you can see this is a URL we'll be using, right? You can see, let's say if I have my latest version called 2.2.3, so for that, for 2.x, I'll be using this CDN, right? Instead of actually downloading and actually installing, I'll directly give my CDN, which is a um, over the internet API call, kind of. And you can see both are minified version of jQuery, which basically actually is used in production. So that's about the mainly about the installation. There is no big deal in installing your jQuery. Basically, it's just a download or just directly use CDN and give a reference and start development. That's it. That's how jQuery is easy to use in our applications, basically, right? So that's how it is. The main difference we have here is, so basically we normally call jQuery is an unobstructive JavaScript code. Meaning, so if you see the JavaScript, right, we have seen so many JavaScript, um, you know, code implementations till now. We have seen that whenever we're actually writing JavaScript, we can also write JavaScript piece of codes in HTML, right? We can actually call JavaScript codes from HTML directly using event tags and all. But jQuery, what it does is it will actually divide. It actually isolates complete HTML clean code, right, with the JS code we are writing, right? So you can actually maintain your HTML clean. We don't have to actually call up any JavaScript methods or anything, right? And jQuery makes sure that all your JavaScript calls are done exclusively. That's why it's unobstructive, which means it doesn't mess with the HTMLs in between, right? We can actually directly get it done using our jQuery calls, right? So now with this quick intro, let's actually go ahead and write up a simple a hello world application. So I've created a simple HTML page here. So for instance, first let's take input button type, and let me call it as ID as, for instance, btn. Let's say click. There's my, and let's say I'll say hello world. Let's this is my button I have, right? So in JavaScript, right? If you want to write the actual code, then we'll be actually handling something called event here, and then we'll be calling a method which is written in, right? And we'll be doing stuff. But here, let's see how clean it is. Now, so whenever you start using, if you want to start using jQuery API in this current page, the first thing what we have to do is we have to give the reference to the jQuery API, which is in script tag, you'll include the JavaScript file here, which is jQuery file. jQuery file is end of the day, it's a JavaScript file. You can see it's a .js file. So now let me copy this and let me give this over here. Simple as that. Right, so once I give this API, which is my JavaScript 2.2.3, now in this page I can actually use my JavaScript APIs and I can do my DOM manipulations and whatever features I have in jQuery. Excuse me. So this is one way that I'm actually downloading and setting up my API. Second, CDN. Now how does CDN works? Similar to this, if you're using CDNs, right, what I can do, I can again create a script tag, right? But in source, instead of giving the download version, what I'll do, I'll actually go with my CDNs. I've just shown you the CDNs, right? Let's say if I'm using Google, I have my API here. You can see, for instance, if I'm going to use my jQuery, I have my jQuery API here. Let's say 2.2.2. Let's copy this, go back here to my code, and I'll give this simple. So here, now you understand the difference. Here what we are doing, we are actually downloading the raw API and we are giving direct reference. But here what we are doing, we are giving a reference at a serial, at a some delivery servers which are residing at let's say for example Google servers, and we are giving this. So whenever there is upgrade, they'll just make it here and it will automatically get updated to our websites. So this is our CDN, and this is something where we are actually downloading and giving reference. So every time you have any upgrade, if you use this download one, right, then you have to upgrade your API. For instance, tomorrow it comes to 2.4, then you have to go back and change. Anyways, even you have to change this CDN also, because based on the version, you may have to change the the reference URL folder actually here. Let's tomorrow 2.2.4 comes, maybe they'll make it as 2.4.0. Then you have to make. But anyways, you don't have to make the complete download and setup. You just have to change your, let's say, configurations of your change. That's how it is. So both will actually give you the same yield, right? So let me comment this. Let me show you. Let me uncomment this. We'll write the program, and then we'll actually uncomment this one too, and we'll see. Right. So for this, if you're developing, right, for this, if you use the CDN, then your machine should be connected to internet. If you are actually working in an offline mode, then this will not work, right? So if you are going to work in offline mode, it's always better to actually download the API and start working, right? That's how it is. So now let me show you how to do it. So first, so I'm going to write a script, right? So we have included a JavaScript file where it contains multiple functionalities being plotted by a developer community. Now I'm going to use it. So here what I want to do, when I click on this button called say hello world, I want to generate an alert. Simple. So here I'll be using the syntax like this, dollar. So dollar is a symbol, right, we use to access jQuery API, right? And here I want to access my button. So I have a button ID. So what we do, so we give something called selectors. This is a selector directly. I'll say dollar, which means okay, to this jQuery, or what I'm saying okay, consider this ID. So when I say hash meaning I'm gonna take the ID. ID is boolean click. Perfect. So to this I'll be using something called click event. There's my event I have, and I'll be writing what to do now. So what to do, I can call a separate function, or you can rather write a function directly here. This is how you do. I'm not going to write function here saying, for example, alert hello world. That's it. This is how we write a simple JavaScript. Now here you can see the syntax of basic JavaScript calling is your the dollar, either dollar or I can use JQuery. Either of them you can use. Either say dollar or just say JQuery. Both are same, right? So dollar is a alias name for the JQuery keyword. Instead of actually mentioning 5 characters, you can just replace it with dollar. That's it. This is your JQuery reference, which means it will give access to JQuery. That's your dollar. And second slot is your selector. We're gonna see we have one complete topic on selectors. There are many ways how you can actually select, but here a simple selector we have given to actually identify a button. That's your identifying button using ID. That's your selector. So if you are considering ID, then you should actually prefix with hash. That's your selector. And then you have something called, so these are your methods or action methods you have, right? So what action we are performing, let's say a click is an action we are actually performing. Then you will have a click action, right? And then in this click action, we'll be writing some functions. So this function is nothing but your callback functions. So actual action, whatever your logic you write here will be done in this callback function as such. So that's your access, jQuery access, that's your selector. And now this is a basic syntax of any jQuery code you write, right? Inside this function, you can write multiple again, right? You can actually create a chain of calls using jQuery, right? We can do multiple. Anyways, we're gonna see most of the stuff here. Now, let's go back to our code now first. So now this is my code. Now let me run this and see whether it works or not. I click on this and say view in browser. So now this is going, as I'm using my Visual Studio, right? So you can, again for jQuery, you can use either Visual Studio, right? I'm actually using 2015 as till date now. Whenever I'm actually writing this code, right? I'm actually using 2015 version of Enterprise Edition. You can also download Express Edition from Microsoft Visual Studio site, and you can write up. Or you can also use Notepad or Sublime Text or Notepad++, any editor, right, which supports HTML, right? You can actually write it, right? Perfect. So now let me open this page and let me click on it. You'll see when I click on this, right, I'm not getting alert here. You can see when I click on say hello, it is not moving up. Why? Because we know that HTML get executes in a flow. So when it is actually executing jQuery, what it does whenever it actually keep this keep this handle steady, it will automatically consider that the object is found. But you can see object element, HTML object element is actually created after the script call, right? That's why it will not find this button and it will actually keep this handle empty. But let's say, for example, if I keep this script inside the body, but after input, for instance, now as soon as it actually comes to script, what will happen? Your DOM element, which is our HTML element, we can click, will be ready, and whenever you're actually registering the script, it is registering now. So now when I run it, so now when I click it, so you can see now it says hello. This is a, which means the execution happens in a flow. That's why we are keeping it here. But definitely, right, we will not be interested in actually keeping in sequence. So I should create any script or any HTML anywhere, and it should be capable of calling. So for that reason, what we'll be doing, so end of the day, we know that jQuery, right, script should get executed once the complete DOM is ready. So when I say DOM, the HTML page, all the elements and objects of HTML, once it is ready, then we want script to be created. So for that, what you can do, whatever functions, whatever handlers you're actually writing, you can keep it inside a ready method. How to write ready? You have a dollar. Now what to get ready, I have a document here. So this is the same document which we used in our JavaScript. So document dot, I'll say ready. Now this is my action method I have to keep this to trigger whenever document is ready. So when document will be ready, when the complete loading of HTML or different HTML stuff is ready, then it will be triggered. So this is my ready. So inside this ready, I'll keep my function. This is a actual document ready we have. Now your ready function is there, action method is there for multiple things. It's not just for document, it is there for forms or text or anything you can actually use ready. Now inside this, I'm going to keep this call. So now what happens, whenever the complete document is ready, whenever the complete DOM gets ready, now I know beat and click is available. So we'll call this and we will actually so this makes a script independent of where exactly we go, because we know that we are actually instantiating the script only after DOM uh, execution. So now let's run this and see. Right click and say view in browser. So let's say hello. I can see. Right. So this is how we normally use the method calls, right, where we are actually using the $jQuery reference, and you have your access, which is selector. Here selector is document, and then you have action method is ready, and then you have callback function. What function we are using? We are calling this function inside which I may be calling other jQuery options. So this is how we normally write jQuery programs to handle stuff. Right. So anytime if you feel that there can be conflict, see, it's not just dollar. So let me run this and show. So when I run this program, you'll see, yep, it is working. So let's say, for instance, I want to make this jQuery itself. Yes, you can always do that. So when you make this $jQuery, which means it is still referring to the API here, whatever API we gave, right? So now what you can do, when I run this program, so let's say, see, it works, right? So here it's a hello world you have even if we actually changed so many things here, right? So that's how it works. Even if you make it jQuery or dollar, yes, both are actually same. Now sometimes if you're actually integrating your jQuery with other platforms, right? When I say other platforms, it can be any other platform of Bootstrap or Kendo UI or any other, right? And let's say, for example, there dollar is significant for some other functionality, right? Then you can always choose your own variable. For example, I'll say where I'll just say my dollar variable. For instance, this is my variable. I can say jQuery dot. You have something called on conflict. Oh, sorry, jQuery dot no conflict. Now this will return a known instance jQuery or dollar to my dollar. So what you can do, once you use this variable, sorry, once you create this variable, you have to use your this stuff here. No way go. If I let me just run this and show you. So when I run this, yes, there is no, and it will give me hello and store. Right? So, but let's say, for example, if I keep the dollar as is somewhere left. So when I run this, right, it will immediately give you object explorer, because here the object, right, jQuery representative object is this one. So I have to use this to call up my JavaScript function I have. Right. So for instance, here, if you have any special characters in IDs, for instance, here I have button click dot, let's say this button, right? So this is my, let's say, for instance, ID. So what I have to do, I have to actually give button click dot ID, right? So but I dot have got other significance in JavaScript. So now when you keep this dot, when I run this, for instance, right, you can see that this is not actually getting triggered, right? Chase him, right? So here, this button, and you have a button click dot this button. So here what we have to do, we have to actually bypass this one. So in order to escape, this is like a special character we have. In order to escape, we will be giving something called \2 escape. So it will consider as if this dot is a part of your ID. So now when you run it, you'll see this works. So this is how we normally work with. So this is how we normally write the code, right, in JQuery to handle. So let me give one more to be more comfortable. Let me write one more program here. So let's say my dollar. So if you have any issue, then yes, you can always keep my dollar, which is I mean no conflict object, and you can use it. But in general, right, as jQuery as a registered, or I would say the dollar is already so many um, you know um, everyone knows that jQuery registered keyword is dollar to actually represent the jQuery class, right? So no framework or other frameworks will definitely be using dollar, right? And to create a compatibility with our jQuery and further implement technologies here, right? So here, let me take one more simple use case. So let's say I have some paragraphs, right? So let's say I'm going to say this is para 1, for instance. So similarly, I'll take some paragraphs. One say 2, 3, 4, 6, 7. For instance, I have 7 different paragraphs. So what I want to do here is when I click on any of them, see when I right click and browse on server, you'll see these type of. When I click on this, what I want to do, I want to erase this, for instance, and I want to rearrange. Similarly, click on it, click on any one of the item, I want to rearrange. Right? Let's see how to generate that functionality here. So now what we have to do, we have to actually work on a tag called p. So till now we have worked on id to give hash. So now we are going to see the next selector. So here you can see in this document ready, this is one function, right? I can create multiple internal handle functions I want. So here I'm going to write one more handler, let's say dollar, and I'll give direct um, you know direct tag type. Let's say it's p tag, right? I have. So in this, what I want to do, I want to actually take this, and whenever user clicks, so here I want to perform my action method is click. So in this action, what I want to do, let's write a function. So in this function, I'll say dollar, and I'll say this. If you remember, inside a function, when if I call this means the context uses the paragraph context. So I'll say this dot hide, for instance. Right? So this is how whenever you click on any paragraph P, as such you can see, I'm handling P. I'm not saying hash P. What does hash P mean? Hash P mean I'm actually looking for some ID. But this time I'm not actually hashing here. Right? So, and what happens whenever I click on any paragraph, automatically hit on click. What I'm doing, I'm calling a function, right? Either you can give function name, or that's fine, because end of the day the reference is this. And in this function, what I'm doing this, right, dot hide. This in the sense the function or the paragraph, this instance of paragraph, and right. So that's how it is. So now let me right click and say view in browser. So I'll say when I click on it, see 3 gone, 5, 6, 1, 7. So this is how we normally handle the. So in this way, right, see, now you can actually improvise. We know that there are multiple paragraphs, right? And here what we are doing, we are actually hiding whenever it clicks. So for instance, I want to actually show the text one by one. Yeah, we can always do that. We have something called each, which is, we're going to understand this for each and all in our traversal class in much deeper way. But here, let me give you some introduction for it. Let's say, for example, I want all p tags. I want all p tags, and I want to update with one something, right? This is my p tag I have. So in this, what I'll do, I'll actually take my multiple items. So when I talk about multiple items, which means I'm going to actually use something called, see, when I say $p, which means this will give you one or multiple elements. When I say $p, which means it is referring to the tags, which are paragraphs you have. Now it will get all paragraphs. Now here I'll be mentioning something called each. Perfect. Each is an action method. So in this each method, what to do? Let's understand. So in this action, what we'll be doing, we'll actually get my uh, each paragraph at a time, right? So what we'll do, we'll have dollar of this, which is a current paragraph. Let me keep it in alert, saying dot. For instance, do we have any message here? This is paragraph, right? Let's say I'm gonna print it, HTML, open, close back. Perfect. Right. So let me run this in browser. Now you'll see this is para 1, para 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and that's it. This is how we read. Now this function we are actually using directly in our HT, directly calling from our HTML. Now you can see that this code, jQuery code and HTML are altogether exclusively different. We are not calling any one component of jQuery from HTML or any HTML from OE. That's the beauty of the jQuery we have, right? So this is how we normally do create jQuery functions, and we'll be using them for multiple functionalities, right? So now you can see, let's say if I'm gonna I'll comment this and I'll uncomment this API, which is jQuery 2.0 over the internet. So let me run this. When I run this program, you'll see it still works. End of the day, when I say dollar, it is referring to jQuery, right? When I click on it, see, it works. Meaning, right, in this API, whatever calls we need, right, over the internet network, right? Yes, it is actually considering dollar as JavaScript, and it is working fine. So this is how we normally do programming in jQuery. So now, yes, we are going to see multiple concepts as such as part of our jQuery, right? So first we're going to start with selectors. So now let's see multiple features which we are going to discuss across across our jQuery features basically, and then we're going to see each and every feature in depth. So we're going to work on selectors, right, for HTML elements, very important, right? So we're going to see some DOM manipulation, right, which is DOM manipulation using DOM manipulation on HTML elements. You have CSS manipulation, right, and you'll be taking up some functions or events, for instance, right, and we'll see some effects, basically effects or animations basically, which we can actually perform using JS, right, and on top of JS we'll be using jQuery to perform some effects and animations. And then very important, we'll see traversals, right, which is basically a traversal or DOM traversal and modifying of DOM. And anyways, we're gonna see something about Ajax, very important Ajax we're gonna see, and then we'll see some utilities of jQuery we have, right, and then we'll actually talk about something called manipulation we have written, CSS manipulation events. Yes. So these are some major functionalities we have as part of jQuery, right? And then we are going to see in depth of each concept of jQuery. Right? So this is kind of very important, and this is going to give a much better hold, right, when we start our AngularJS. Let's start with our first topic of jQuery called selectors. Right? So now we know, right, that whenever we are actually writing up a syntax, we know dollar is reference to jQuery, and we have selector, and then we have written something called action method, which contains some callback method, for example. Right? So in this, we have one more step called context. One more very important parameter called context here. Right? We'll understand this context as such. Now, let's look at some of very important selectors we have, right? And selectors can be retrieved through elements. We can actually retrieve through multiple selectors through ID. It can be ID, or it can be name of element, right? It can be attribute. It can be class. It can be content, right? It can be position, right? In multiple ways you can actually get your elements through selectors, right? So now first let's see one very important example to actually the retrieve the element objects through jQuery with multiple selector options. So for this, let me create a new HTML page, and let me save it. Let's say this is selector 1.html. So now here, let me copy this script, right, which we have actually downloaded. So we have to keep this script actually. Let's say if I comment it out and run this browser, let's see what happens. See, it says it doesn't understand what is dollar, right? Because inside script, right, directly we don't have dollar for a JavaScript. Basically, it is alias for jQuery. So it will not give. So when I click on this, it won't understand what exactly is happening. These are static HTML which get rendered as such, right? So this is how your script is important. So let me copy this script and let me keep this in my selector, right? I'm going to use my downloaded one of, right? So here, let me design some form elements. Maybe under form, for instance, I have a div, and I'm going to take a paragraphs here. So here I'll have something called ID is equal to some ID. Will take, let's say, P1, and let's say I'm going to take it as para1. So for example, here I don't have this ID, and I'll take para2, and I'll create the same options in my class outside. Say para3 and para4. So para4, for instance. Perfect. Now this is a simple form with some paragraphs. So now when you run this browser, we'll see step by step. You have para1, para2, para5, 3 and 4, kind of, right? So now what we want to do, let's assign some style for uh, some tags here. I hope this style is something which you can define CSS directly in my web page. So style, I'll say dot, I want to define my color class. I'll say my color. Right, and here let's say I'm going to take color as red and background sorry background color as, for instance, yellow. sorry, right? So I have my style open and close, my color I've defined, which is open and close bracket, right? I've used this color. Let's say if it is already there, I'll take red, and background color I'll take directly if it is coming yellow. Yeah, perfect, no issues. This is my simple style. So I can call this my class called my color for some. For instance, I'm gonna take for paragraph 5. So I can take something called class is equal to my color. Similarly, for para 3, para 4, for instance, I'm gonna take this, right? I'm going to take these things random, for instance. Now, yeah, my paragraphs are ready to go. So now what I'm going to do here, let's say I want to retrieve paragraph using some selectors. Now, let me write a script now. So I have already implemented my or imported my JavaScript, jQuery API into script. Now I'm going to actually include my script. So first thing is to actually get my paragraph speed. Even before that, we'll write document ready. Why do we need to write document ready? Because once my complete page is instantiated, then only use my function, for instance. So here I'll use. So I'll say where I'll take this p, right? So I'm gonna go to each, for instance, function, and I'll say dollar of this. This is not going to be the current instance of p, whatever it is, where we have multiple paragraphs. Here you can see para 1, 2, and 4 and 5 inside div and outside paragraph also, right? So now I just took my selector called tag type, which is called as a by tag name. So for the first selector we have seen is by tag or HTML name, right? So this will hold, and for instance I want to print it alert of dollar of this, dollar of each paragraph. In each paragraph, what is exactly we have something called, for instance, HTML to print. Perfect. So now this will actually print HTML whenever page is ready. So right click and say view in browser. You will see para 1, para 2, para 5, 3, 4, right? Only 4 till it came, because we have all the paragraphs been added, and we have actually provided my color, which is the CSS to para 5 and para 4, right? Similarly, so now it will give you all the para tags. We are not giving any context here. So what it will do, it will take the complete form of context or body context, and it will traverse. So now let's give to some different context. Now you can see there are some paragraphs within div and there are some out of your div. So what I'm going to do here, I'll say comma, I'll give some context. Let's say I'm going to give context as div. Div is again a tag name. So now when I run this view browser, you'll see para 1, 2, and 5. That's it. Where's para 1, 2, 2, and 5? Right? So now when I say direct name, I gave the name here, div. Right? It's not ID also. I just gave name. So when I run this, you can see para 1 coming, 2 coming, and 5 coming. That's it. Nothing else. Everything else will be skipped out, because I'm just taking the context as div. That's how it actually works. Right? So similarly, if I want to give ID, yes, we can always give, let's say for example, ID is some my div, for instance. Yes, you can always give this my div. Whenever you're giving ID, prefix it with hash and key. That's it. So now when I run it, para 1, para 2, para 5, right? And then what we're doing, we are actually capturing all. So now we have para 1, para 2, para 5. All actually got rejected because of which is like others the paras tags which are other than div, right, will not be considered because we are giving specific. That's how it is. Again, let's say for example here you want to actually be specific. Even in div you don't want to go to all the paragraphs, you want to go to a specific one, for instance only for the first. Yes, for instance here you have given id, right? You can always use this id again, which is hash, let's say p1. Yes, you can always give. Now this will go to specific to this para and this div. Now when I run it, it will be only on para 1. That's how it is. So this is how the selectors are actually created, basically, right? And we can actually use this for multiple. So now you can see that I'm actually anyways when I do this, this doesn't have multiple paras, right? It will give only one, so you don't have to write all each here. You can directly write up this in an alert. Basically you can directly take this and write HTML directly. So let me show you. I'll take alert of so and so, right, dot, let's say for example HTML. I know that this is something which is gonna give direct, you can see para 1, because the para 1 is the only paragraph we have with id p1. So this is how this is going to be my selector, and this is my context. The context I'm taking in div. That's how it is. But if I don't take this div and if I give id, even then it will pick this only. Why? Because the id should always be unique across my HTML document. Always. This is a minimum requirement we all have, right? So similarly, for example, for whatever you have considered, let's go to this again back. Let's say you want to perform multiple actions on this. Let's say you have provided alert, and after that, so for example, whatever got selected you want to assign with the class which is HTA, which is, let's remove this class for all paragraphs, but whatever is selected you want to assign the class which is CSS class, for example, which is, we can also do something called CSS manipulation, as I said, right? So one of the CSS manipulation we're going to do now. So for this, what I'm going to do, I'll also assign dot add class I have, right? What is the class name? I can give my class name which is my color, for example. So which means I'm gonna add my CSS. I'm reading my HTML inner HTML data of my para, right? I'm doing multiple stuffs inside this function. These are different stuffs here. So now when I run this program, you will see para 1, and you'll also see only para 1 got highlighted with the color and background color. This is how it actually works. So for instance, if you give all paras, right, for instance if I give only tags called p inside my div, then what happens when I run this browser? You will see para 1, para 2 and para 3. See, there are 3 paras under this div, right? All these will get added to the color, which is when I go to source, right click and say view source, right? So it will give me this window, and it will actually show my actual which actually created. Now you can see, right, it is actually adding my color, which means for all these paras, right, your color will be added dynamically. That's how it is. So this is how the selectors can be selected as such. That's the selector you have, and the context which we selected. So based on the context and based on the selector you're actually providing, it will actually select the stuff, right? So for instance, inside this div, let's say you have something called other tags, for instance span, right? Let's say this is span, for instance, right? Now here what we gave only p, which is paragraph tags, right, inside my div. So when I run this, what will happen? It will give me only paras here because I gave p. If you want multiple, for instance you want p and also span, yes, you can always give it using comma. When I say p comma span, let me run this, you'll see I have my paragraph, para 2, para 5 and also span. That's what it is. So in the same selector you can select multiple items either by tag name or by ID. For instance, for this for this paragraph, we want to actually go only with P1. Yes, you can give hash P1, which is ID, and you can go with the tag called span. Yes, you can. Now only your P1 and span will be selected. Let me run this. We'll see. This is span and para1 is your ID. Sorry, this is capital P1 it seems. So let me just make it a small P1. This ID should match, right? So let me run this. You'll see para1 and span. Only these two will get highlighted. That's how we play around with selectors and context. So very important, right? How we actually, play around with the selectors and the context we have, right? Similarly, we have multiple selectors. We're gonna see with more selector types. We're gonna see, right? Which we can use which we can use in our jQuery, right? So, any questions till now, guys? Basically, right? Perfect.
Yeah.
Yes, Saram. Yeah.
Hello. Yeah, Srinath, is this the syntax for jQuery? The dollar and the para, whatever it is, and the each function
Yes.
for
So
every.
this is the complete syntax of jQuery only. Now, whenever you say
Okay.
dollar, which means you are starting accessing the jQuery API, and to this jQuery API, this is a syntax basically, which is you're accessing
Okay.
your jQuery, this is your selector, and your context and the action methods. Everywhere you can see is the same. See, if you come to this
Uh,
context again, your dollar, your selector and action, your dollar, selector and action. So yeah, it's the same.
what is the difference between jQuery, the JS file, and the Google? You said like for Google, Microsoft, IBM,
Here,
those kind
no,
of.
there is okay, fine. See,
What is the difference?
as per file is concerned, there is no difference. Okay,
Okay.
the main difference here is now you are downloading and you are giving reference from your local, right? Now let's say here this
Yeah.
you have already downloaded your JS file and you are providing local reference, right? But here this is your on the network reference. You don't have to download and stuff. What you can do, you can actually give this
Okay.
reference directly as a URL. You can say it's a URL, HTTPS Ajax, right? It's a URL where in their delivery network servers they place these JS files and we are getting the reference. End of the day, content will be same if you are using same version. For example, here I'm using 2.2.2 for instance, and 2.2
Mhm.
both the files are same.
Okay.
But
Uh,
yeah,
okay.
yeah,
If we take another one, the we have like a four, right? Google, Microsoft.
yeah, you can take any. You can
Uh,
take any one of them. That's not a problem. You can take any one of them.
that's not a problem.
Yeah, based on the version. Let's say I'll go to Microsoft CDN, right? For instance, and you can see. Let's say for instance I want 2.2.3. Yeah, I can take this. I wanted Microsoft, right? Or anyways, I can take. I just clicked on Microsoft, right? Right.
Yeah.
Okay, sure. This is the one. So, for instance, I want 2.2.3 version. Yes, this is the one. What I'll do, I'll take the minified version, right? I'll come back to this, right? So, instead of giving this, for instance, let me work on this. Huh? So, I'll take my script, I'll go to source, and I'll give this one, right? So, this is my uh, right version of jQuery version of API I gave, which is a CDN from Microsoft. So now when I run this program, you'll see the same output. End of the day. If I don't give both, right, then there is a problem, right? If I don't give both, for instance, and let me run it, it doesn't understand what is dollar.
Yeah.
Okay. So here, end of the day, you are either giving online reference or you're giving offline reference. This kind of it.
This must be have a online connection with the system.
Yes, yes. If you're using this CDN, right, Your machine should be connected. See, when you that's why, see, we normally, whenever we actually make our site live in the sense exposed to internet, then definitely it will always be on the network, right? So you can actually enable this one. Okay, but during development, yes, you can always go for the local version of your API.
We can use both. We can put like
There is no
both data.
difference actually. I mean, see, if you're placing both, see, for instance, let me just uncomment this. See, what exactly you're doing is you're actually, it will take any one reference and it will work. That's not a problem. But thing is, there is no meaning
Okay.
actually, right? So whenever you're actually moving to the productions, then only actually keep your script. As of now, as we're creating multiple HTMLs, right, we are giving everywhere. But in real time, what we do, let's say if you're creating any one master page kind of thing, and if you're giving multiple child pages, right, then you can just give the script reference only in master, and it will automatically get reference to all childs.
Okay.
You don't have to give this reference to each and every page as such. It all depends on how you actually giving the reference,
Mhm.
right?
Okay.
Yeah, so that's how it is mapped. And yes, this is completely jQuery framework, pattern we're actually learning. It's more specific to jQuery. Perfect. So now let's see the selectors, basic selectors which we have. So now we have seen selectors using ID, selectors using tag name. So two stuffs we have seen: by ID, which means by the attribute ID of my tag. I can access by tag, and I can actually set my different properties of that tag, or I can access that with, and I can access all different elements using my tag name, which is second one, which is by tag or HTML element name. This is the second one here, by tag or element name, right? And the next one you have is by class name. This again, we'll be using it most of the times. Class name meaning, for instance, here, so what we're doing, we have some paragraph spans, and for instance, let's say here I'm going to give some class meaning I'm going to assign whatever CSS class we have created. Simple, we have created a simple style class, right? My color, which is I've assigned some color, red and background color, right? So here, yes, I'm actually setting up, let's say for this span, let's say I'm going to give this, for this span I'll say my color, and let's say for paragraph 4 as well. So this time what I want to do, I want to retrieve all the elements, right? All the HTML tags who are using my color tag, my color class. Let's see how. So let me comment this and let's go. So here, yes, again I can start searching. So what is a selector? Selector is, as I'm going to take class, I'm going to give dot my color. This is my class, right? So in this, let's say if I go with this, yes, let's say I'm gonna get multiple elements here. So I'm gonna use each of function. So here in this function, what I'll be getting multiple elements, right? Because my color is being used by paragraph and span, and again some other paragraph tag, right? So for each, what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna set some property. Let's set some other property. So here I'll say this meaning, whenever it is running in loop, for each loop I'm getting each instance. For example, first I'll get this. When I say this, it will go to the first element tag. So for, let's say for instance, for this element I'm going to tag some CSS. So this time we'll see tagging one CSS attribute. So for instance, what should we tag? Let's say, okay, let's say I'm going to tag this time font size, for instance, font size to, maybe I'll say 30 px, for instance. So what we are doing here, whatever attribute or whatever HTML element is using my color class, what I want to do, I want to actually increase the font of that element with 30 px. That's a situation here, right? So now let me run this. So now you will see para 2 is using my color. This is pan is using my color. Para 4 is using my color. So these DOM elements got selected, and the CSS which we are applying will get applied to these things. Actually, that's how we select. Now during the selection, here you can see I haven't provided any kind of context here. I can provide context. Let's say for instance I'm gonna provide context of my div, for example, meaning, okay, search for all the elements of HTML document whoever is using my color, and I want to search only in the context of my div. My div meaning in this div, if I find any element, I want to work only on them, right? So let's run and see. Now you will see it applies only to para 2 because we are applying only this, which is 30 px. You will see para 2 and span, which are within my div, will get applied. This is how we can actually penetrate and we can access the elements using the class. Now, so the same class, for instance, if you want to be more specific, I just want only for something called only paragraph tags or span, let's say. Yes, before this dot, you can give span. When I say span dot, which means select only span tags with class my color. That's the meaning. So when I run it, you'll see, right? See here, only span will be selected, and even if you have paragraph, right, it will not select. This is by element name, right? What is the element name, tag name? It's span. For instance, if you want to go with the ID, for instance, if I want to go with the ID, let's say ID is equal to, for instance, I'm going to say P2, for instance, here. Yes, I can do that, but how to do? It's hash P2 dot my color, right? So hash P2 is nothing but ID. Yes, this is ID and dot my color. So here I'm actually looking for a specific one, which means, okay, I'm looking for a ID called P2. Yes, P2 is there, and I'm checking whether the class is my color. Yes, it is my color. Then yes, go ahead and apply. So when I run this, you'll see that parameter will apply. For instance, let's say I'm saying, for instance, P1. Let me take P1, but P1 doesn't have class, right? I'm checking ID P1 dot my color, which is class. So when I run this, you'll see, right, nothing will get added. Why? Because with this combination of selector, there is no element, right? So that's why nothing will get selected as such. This is how we normally access the selectors using class, which is by class name, right? And definitely whenever you're actually calling this with either tag or just use dot my color, right? So this combination will be applied together, right? Either you can combine this with a tag name or a ID. That's how you can do. Fine. So this is the combination you have. Similarly, we have one more combination of something called tag and ID. You can actually combine both, right? You can combine both the stuffs and you can check it. For instance, here let me comment this and take one more. Let's say I want what to search. Let's say I want type of div, right? I want a type of div, and the ID I can give directly, and the ID should be, for instance, my div. This is a tag name and div. So for instance, anyways, div is only one, right? So let's take paragraph here. I want a para, and the para ID should be P2, for instance. This is my requirement here. So what I'm gonna do? So for instance, if it is the case, then let's say I want to apply CSS to this. Let's take the same CSS and apply. Right, so let's run this. So you'll see it will get applied to para2. How? P is a paragraph tag and p2, yes, for this para, among all the paragraphs I have p2, right, which is my id, right? Yes, in this combination I got one element, to this element this css will get applied, simple as that. So now you'll get this p2s. this is a this is your combination you have with the id and type you have. So in this way, you can actually apply, right, for multiple things. So as of now, I've actually applied for, let's say, for instance, this, right? So for instance, I want to apply for span also. Just say span, comma span. When I run this, you'll see your selector, your jQuery is a very powerful, platform we have. We can actually use selectors in whatever we actually looking for. So this is your basic, selectors you have, which is your by ID, by tag, and by class name, and the combination of each. Tag to ID, ID to class, a class to tag, right, and ID to class as such, right. So similarly, we have seen something called combination, right, which is you want both class and, here we have seen both, let's say, ID and name, and we have seen tag, and also for instance let me add dot my color also, which means I'm also adding the class. So when I run this, right, you'll see, right, my color wherever it is there, anyways, span and p2 anyways we have, and one more we have got p4, you can see for p4 my color is there, right, even this will get bolded. So here what we are doing, we are applying multiple combinations. So this is something which is called as a combination of selectors across your tag, sorry, uh, tag name, tag id, class name, right, and multiple combinations across. So this is how we can actually perform multiple actions based on selectors. And also we have some selectors based on hierarchy, right? So hierarchical selectors, yes, we do perform some hierarchical selectors based on uh, some other, here we normally use combinations, which is comma. We also have something called hierarchical. So we'll look at hierarchical, selectors, and we have other very important selectors called index filter selectors and all, and visibility filter selectors. Yeah, it's a and we have form selectors also. We'll actually see the selectors, remaining selectors, in our next class, right? So you can actually go through this till now, because these are the base, pillars of jQuery. When we actually move on, we'll be actually going to the advanced topics of jQuery, and definitely these acts as a pillar for them, right? So this is what we have for to current class. Let's meet up in next class, and we'll actually resume the further topics. Thank you.